For 5 centuries, historians believed that the Spanish conquistadors had wildly exaggerated their accounts of a massive, terrifying wall of human skulls in the heart of the Aztec Empire, until the year 2015, when archaeologists digging beneath modern-day Mexico City realized with absolute horror that the legends were completely, undeniably true. When Hernán Cortés and his men marched into the gleaming island city of Tenochtitlan in 1519, they documented a civilization of unimaginable wealth, complex aqueducts, and towering pyramids. But their writings were utterly dominated by a structure that shook the battle-hardened soldiers to their very core. They described the Huey Tzompantli, the Great Skull Rack, a monstrous monument erected in the sacred precinct of the city, dedicated to Huitzilopochtli, the Aztec god of the sun, war, and human sacrifice. Conquistador Andrés de Papia wrote of towering wooden scaffolding and massive cylindrical towers constructed entirely of severed human heads, estimating that the structure held an impossible 136,000 skulls. For hundreds of years, modern scholars dismissed this as colonial propaganda designed to paint the Aztecs as savage monsters to justify the Spanish conquest. But in 2015, a team from the Mexican National Institute of Anthropology and History, led by archaeologist Raúl Barrera Rodriguez, broke through the basement floor of a colonial-era building on Guatemala Street and struck a solid layer of white lime mortar, discovering that the mortar wasn't binding bricks or stones. It was binding the jaws and craniums of thousands of human beings. The physical construction of the Huey Tzompantli was an architectural marvel of macabre engineering, designed to be the ultimate display of imperial power and religious devotion. The structure consisted of a massive rectangular platform measuring roughly 35 meters long, upon which rows of thick wooden posts were erected. Between these posts, horizontal crosspoles were threaded through large holes that Aztec priests had meticulously bored into the parietal bones of the victims' heads, right above the ears, allowing the skulls to be slid onto the wood like an abacus of death. But the most terrifying features were the 2 cylindrical towers flanking the rack, measuring nearly 5 meters in diameter, where the skulls were no longer simply displayed, but used as actual building materials. Hundreds of heads were cemented together with lime, stacked in concentric rings facing inward and outward, their hollow eyes watching the priests conduct their bloody rituals, creating a literal temple of bone that was constantly updated and expanded as fresh sacrifices were brought to the altar. When the excavation first began, anthropologists fully expected the remains to confirm their long-held theories about Aztec warfare, that these skulls would belong exclusively to young male warriors captured from rival city-states during the ritualistic Flowery Wars. However, as the osteologists began to carefully analyze the bone structures, they made a chilling discovery that completely altered our understanding of the Aztec Empire. While many of the skulls did belong to men between the ages of 20 and 35, a terrifying percentage of the remains belonged to women and, most tragically, to young children. This revelation proved that the Huey Tzompantli was not merely a trophy rack designed to intimidate political rivals and rebel states, but a deeply profound, indiscriminate religious apparatus. To the Aztecs, this wasn't murder, it was nextlahuali, a necessary debt payment to the gods. They believed that without the continuous offering of human blood and the life force contained within the head, the sun would literally halt its journey across the sky, bringing about the apocalyptic end of the universe, meaning every man, woman, and child placed on the rack was seen as a vital gear keeping the cosmos alive. When the Spanish forces, bolstered by tens of thousands of indigenous allies who despised Aztec rule, finally laid siege to Tenochtitlan in 1521, the Huey Tzompantli became a primary target of their holy fury. The conquistadors were horrified by the altar, viewing it as the literal work of the devil, especially after witnessing the heads of their own fallen comrades and their captured horses placed on the rack during the months-long siege. Once the city fell, Hernán Cortés ordered the systematic and total destruction of the sacred precinct. The wooden scaffolding of the Huey Tzompantli was torn down and burned, and the massive stone towers of skulls were violently smashed to pieces. The Spanish then used the shattered fragments of the Aztec temples mixed with the pulverized bones of the victims to fill in the surrounding lake and build the foundations of the new Spanish colonial capital, literally paving over the Empire of Death to erase its memory from the face of the earth. For nearly 500 years, the screaming skulls of the Huey Tzompantli slept silently beneath the cobblestone streets and cathedral bells of Mexico City, dismissed as a dark fairy tale from a bloody era. Today, as archaeologists continue to excavate the site, pulling hundreds of new skulls from the earth every year, the true scale of the structure is still slowly coming into focus. The Skull Tower stands as a terrifying paradox. It is simultaneously one of the most horrifying monuments ever constructed by human hands, and a profound testament to a civilization whose devotion was so absolute that they were willing to build a mountain of their own dead to keep the sun shining. The Huey Tzompantli forces us to look directly into the hollow eyes of history, reminding us that sometimes the most nightmarish legends aren't myths at all. They're just waiting beneath the floorboards to be unburied.